Hey everybody, and welcome to another Fundamental Games Fun in 5. I'm bringing you today Root, a woodland game of might and right. This game I got about a year and a half ago. Actually first tried to play it, I think about a year before that, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. But let's talk about why I think this game is fun. First off, Asymmetric Characters. This is the first game I played where there is such a real intense vision to play with asymmetric characters. There are 4 different characters in this core game that I'm going to talk about. There's the Marquis de Cat, which is a fantastic name, by the way. You can see their meeples on the board here. The Eerie Dynasty, which are the birds. You have the Woodland Alliance, which are these little green mice there. And then you have one lone vagabond, this little raccoon kind of guy. But these boards, the reason that this is so special is that every one of these characters starts in a different type of setup. They have a completely different set of rules on their board that they have to follow and a completely different win condition. So everything about every character in this game is completely different from the other characters. And I haven't seen a game do it quite like this. And it's a lot of fun experiencing that, especially if you haven't had an asymmetric game before. So absolutely love it. And the characters themselves, I mean, the images are great. I'll talk about that. But even the meeples and the presentation and their gameplay is all so different that it's just a blast to see that asymmetry at work. So that's the first thing, and those the next one is about the setup. So if you look at the game board, the setup this is kind of how the game would start, and it's very intimidating. I mean, you see all of these Marquis de Cat tokens all over the board and this army of cats that they could potentially get. The birds, they start in this little corner. They get one spot in the forest, and they're trying to make a comeback to take down the Marquis de Cats that are cutting and chopping and taking over the forest. Then there's this little vagabond. He's going to start on any position on the board, depending on what the player chooses to do. And he's just going to run around. He doesn't even build an army. So really cool that the setup for this guy is just, he goes on a spot. And there'll be a couple of ruin tokens that go on the board. And then the Woodland Alliance, they're going to pop up all throughout the board, depending on what that player does if you're playing a 4-player game. Now, this is just a 2-player setup, so I just have the cats and the birds. But the setup is different. It's very, very intimidating if you're the bird, the Eerie Dynasty. Even more so if you're just this lone little raccoon running around. And so games that normally set up, it's usually balanced and even. This is unbalanced at the start, and yet the game is balanced. So that's what I love about the setup, is it's so different than anything I'm used to in board games. The next one is about the imagery and the art. I'll pop up a few things on the screen, but the cute art that is done by, what's his name here? Kyle Farron is really, really cool. It's a very simplistic cartoonish style, but there's a darkness to it that you don't see in some cartoons. The imagery of the forest and whatnot, that reminds me a lot of Calvin and Hobbes kind of art. But otherwise, the images throughout the cards just really cutesy, and yet a darkness to them that you don't always see. And then the imagery of the meeples, it's very simple. It's got a couple eyes and a mouth, but it just evokes the sense of those characters. The Marquis de Cats have the scowling eyes and look like they're ready for battle. The birds look like they're, upset and want some action. The Woodland Alliance is just going to surprise you. And then this guy's just a little sneak that runs around. So that imagery, the art really shows the theme throughout the game, and I just love how it looks on the table. You'll see in some of the pictures there. The next one is about the training and the rules. So the training comes with a walking into Root, kind of a walkthrough for the first couple turns for each player. There's a learning to play guide overall to look at, and then there's a law of Root, which is kind of like the master rulebook of the game. And this is not a game where you could pick up and just play it. You really need to walk through to learn to play it if you're not getting taught by somebody who's really experienced with the game. And that's one thing that as gamers, you play a lot of games, you might just think you can pick up rules and skim through and get ready to play. Not in this game, but they did a really, really good job of setting it up. And if you follow the rules start to finish on your boards, it really does teach you how to play as you go too. So it's just a matter of really being prepared to learn. And I love how they set it all up once you get past that first burden of actually having to read. And then the 5th one is about strategy. The strategy in this game is really, really deep. And what I mean by that is the first time you play, you may have no idea what you're doing. You kind of just fumble your way through the moves and figure out what to do, and you might get a surprise win or a surprise loss, especially if you're one of the characters that don't start out on the board at all. And the more you play it, the more you understand each faction, the more you get better at playing the faction you're going to be, and the more you get better at anticipating how to stop other factions, how to stop the chain that the Eerie starts. If you can just break up one move, you can ruin their entire faction. Or preparing for a Woodland Alliance revolt, or understanding that you might have to be buddies with the little vagabond that runs around. So the strategy is really, really deep, and that's what is the most fun about this game, is if you can get this game to the table with people who embrace that theme, embrace that concept, enjoy player versus player, and just really enjoy strategy games. It's a very low luck game. There are some card-based luck in it, but it's really about the strategy, and I absolutely love that, and that adds a lot of fun to the game. So there you have it. That is Root, a game of Woodland Might and Right. I have not played the expansions yet, but I am looking forward to trying those someday. But the base game all by itself is fantastic. Replayability, imagery, strategy, and learning. It's just all really good. I highly recommend it. So hope you have some fun with Root one day. Until then, take care.